Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica and
Stacy,
Megan,
and we have some very special guests here today. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Tori Cranner.
And I'm Fox Carney, and I'm the manager of research here at the Animation Research Library here at Disney.
And I am the art collections manager at the Animation Research Library.
this is so cool.
We're all smiling from ear to ear because this has been on our podcast wish list. We're very big Disney fans here. And one of the things that I wanted to right off the bat establish, you guys are not open to the public, correct?
That is correct. We are primarily a facility for the Walt Disney Company itself as a whole. We are a resource. Our collection is comprised of about 65 million pieces of artwork and production material for the shorts and the features that were produced by the animation studios from the 1920s to current day. So our 65 million pieces of physical objects, and we're also incorporating tens of millions more of digital objects as an ongoing project so that we have everything that the animation studios has created as much as possible.
Wow.
That's amazing. So we thought it would be wonderful to not only speak with librarians and archivists from Disney, but also to give librarians and Disney fans just a glimpse into this very special archives. So I'm going to give it over to some of my co-hosts who have some questions.
Okay. Great.
So could you please give us a brief history of the archives and how you started working there?
Well, the archives this is actually the Animation Research Library. There is a Walt Disney Archives, which is the main archives for the corporation as a whole, and that's a different facility. But our collection started way back in the beginnings of the animation studios, back when it was first in Kingswell Street, then on Hyperion in Silver Lake. And so when they were producing their shorts, it was the Alice comedies and the Oswald shorts and into the Mickey Mouse shorts, they would save artwork and just store it off on one of their buildings on the lot. And over the years, once the studio moved into the Burbank studios in 1940, they stored all the artworks in the basement of what was known then as the Ink and Paint building. And also part of the collection was in the basement of the old animation building. In 1989, that artwork was moved to a warehouse facility in Glendale. And in 1999, the artwork was moved into this facility where we are located, our secure, undisclosed facility here in beautiful downtown.
Top secret.
There's a question about so it's a climate controlled warehouse, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it functions anyway, just like any other museum in the world. We have complete climate-controlled vaults via security. All of our material is housed in museum standard archival material. So in every way, we function just like a museum collection would, except we don't actually have a museum attached to it.
That's really cool.
And you use the white gloves then if you have to do...
Yeah, totally. Always wearing gloves.
I have
Fox is, for those, obviously, because this is sound, Fox has his white gloves in his pocket. Are they Mickey Mouse gloves?
No, they don't have the black lines on the back, and they actually have thumb and four fingers.
Right.
Yeah. That's really.
But this facility, the artwork hasn't always been in the best of conditions. In the past 20 years, we've really elevated our methods of preserving artwork. But when you think of how Hollywood and show business and movie making is so ephemeral that the films themselves are what's important. To have saved what we have here, even in the manners that they've been saved over the years, is amazing. To think that even way back in the day, Walt and everybody said, well, let's store the art. And he actually had that view that this artwork would be a source of education, that artists and filmmakers could always go back and look at it. It was a source of inspiration, that they could look at it and be inspired to create new artwork, and even in some cases straight out reuse the artwork as needed. Mm-hmm. So it was both very pragmatic, but also very long range, and actually amazing that they have saved all of this.
And the collections are actually in remarkably good condition, considering that they were stored in the basement of the animation building for quite a long time. The animation paper is very durable, and so we are lucky to have this great collection that really has survived since the 1920s.
That's so impressive.
And it's been a core resource. For a long time, this was known as Disney's secret weapon, because they had something to which to refer to go back to. In some cases, it was so secret that people within the company didn't even know that we existed. But as I said, as we've been elevating our preservation of the artwork, we've also been reaching out within the company as a corporate resource, so that all the other teams within the Walt Disney Company know that we're here and know to use us and know what kind of art that we have. So teams such as publishing knows that we have artwork here that they could use in some of their books. Home entertainment or direct-to-consumer knows that we have artwork from the films that might be released either in home entertainment or soon to be streaming. And then Imagineering and theme parks and resorts, whenever they're designing their projects, they know they have this resource of artwork. And everybody within the company, and last but not least, the artists themselves, both at the animation studios and the television animation studios, even Pixar animation studios, all have access to artwork here. So they could learn from it, be inspired by it, and even use it as they need.
Wow.
I think the attention to detail, just in general, in the parks and just everything that Disney puts out, it's really great to know that you're there to.
Yeah, but they're like, for everything, they're always considered the highest standard for
Absolutely.
stuff, which is really cool to do. But because you talk about being used as a resource, do you have like students that come in and use the research library for stuff, or are they not really allowed because they have to be part of the company?
Yeah, not very often. In very, very rare instances are students able to come here, unfortunately. We wish that we could help in terms of like collegiate and scholastic research and education, but our bandwidth is just, we have so many projects within the company itself, doing books and home entertainment and consumer products and everything else. And then just trying to preserve the art in an ongoing fashion, that we just don't have the ability to serve everybody, because there's so many Disney fans and scholars and historians out there. Mm-hmm. In certain cases, there are authors and Disney historians who working on approved projects, say for publishing or for licensees of publishing, that they will have access to it. And there is a process where people submit their requests. May we research with the Animation Research Library? And that'll go through all of our image licensing teams and legal teams. Wow. And then if it's deemed to be okay, then we'll assist them. But in many cases for outside personnel, unless they're working on a very specific company-sponsored project, unfortunately, we can't assist. And that's one of the challenges of a corporate archive or a corporate resource such as us, is that we just don't have the bandwidth to help everybody who would want to be able to reference the artwork.
So that being said, it's really fun to see our products out in the world, to see especially, kids walking down the street with a Frozen backpack or, really just love something. It's really gratifying to just, I had a part of that. I had a part of, that little girl's birthday party where she was so excited to see Tigger or something like that. Oh. So in that way, we get to touch a lot of people, even though we don't interact with them personally. It's really fun to watch that happen.
I think it's really important just to kind of note that the trickle down effect of what you are preserving is making people universally happy. And
yeah, that, as Tori said, that's where the connection comes, is that even though we may not be helping directly, our influence is felt. There's always something known as called, the Disney plussing. And there's always, they have the artwork to come back here and they can reference it and they can work with it and then either incorporate it in the products or incorporate it in theme park areas or zones or attractions. So there's always some trickle out effect. So with the public. So everybody in some way, whether they know it or not, are actually enjoying the fruits of our ability to preserve the artwork and make it accessible within all these Disney teams.
That's awesome.
That's really amazing. Like, in terms of getting these projects out, could you give us an estimate of how big your staff is and what are the divisions of the archives and job responsibilities?
Sure. The Animation Research Library itself is fairly small. We have somewhere between 23 and 25 people. And inside this building, we take care of all the artwork. That's our collections department. We have the research department, which Fox takes care of, he is really our interface to the rest of the company. He helps them find artwork, answers questions. He knows the most about the artwork. So if someone's looking for something specific, that's who they go to.
Our team. And then we have a design team that helps oversee the displays of animation studios art all around the world, not just within the building, but in exhibitions around the world and across our country. We have an image capture team, and their job is to photograph and the artwork. So we have digital versions of those that people can reference. We have a traveling exhibitions team, which is really actually one person that travels with artwork around the world to make sure that the art arrives safely where it's supposed to arrive, that it's installed properly, and then brought down and brought back as needed. And we also have an operations and management team that helps make sure that the building runs. So with all these teams are part of our departments, and everyone, we also find ourselves working alongside each other and with each other on projects. So we're not so delineated in silos. So even though we may be answering a research request for a team within the company, Tori and her team, the collections team, will often assist in those projects. So if we have artwork, we pull our artwork that is shown, but it hasn't been scanned yet. Well, the collections team will make sure, let's rehouse it while we have the opportunity. Let's catalog it so that when we digitize it, we'll have a record there. And then it'll transfer over to our image capture team, and they'll make sure that it's captured and the files are QC'd. And we even have, a software developer on staff to make sure that our image browser is working appropriately, or if there are any tweaks that need to be made. Wow. And then if somebody wants to display artwork, all of our teams will be working on some of these projects, and let alone exhibitions and everything else.
So it really, we do function very much like a museum. We mount our own exhibitions that travel around the world, as well as loan to other approved institutions. So in that way, as I said, we have one person whose job it is, and she's very hard. But we function like a museum in many, many ways. And in all the ways we get to touch people that way.
So are you, do you each have MLS library degrees or archiving degrees?
I have a degree in museum studies, and I actually do come from the museum world. I've only been here about 4 years, which in Disney years is about a second.
Wow.
Yeah. I have a graduate degree in museum studies from Tufts University. And so all of my background before coming here was working in different kinds of museums. And I just brought those skills to a different place.
And then members of your team, some may have some backgrounds in MLIS.
I do. We have all sorts of different backgrounds on my team. We have people who are film historians. We have people who came from animation production. We have people who have an MLIS who primarily work in data management. So it's a wide range of people, and we really need all of those skills because there's so many different things happening in an animated film. It's such a collaborative piece that we love having people from many different backgrounds.
I can only imagine all the stuff that goes into it. I just got really excited when you were talking about taking out an art piece and cataloging. I was like, yes, cataloging.
Stacy and Megan actually both. They're catalogers here. They just gave a cataloging high five.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We love metadata.
It's great.
We never metadata we didn't like. That's our thing.
Certainly, and that's a very big part of our job right now. Is we are going through the collection systematically, putting it back in order when that is appropriate, putting it back in its proper housing when appropriate, cataloging it, and then having it digitized. So it'll be a many year project to get it all done, but that is one of the primary focuses of my group is to do that.
Yeah, to identify the artwork, to organize it and rehouse it so it lasts as long as possible, and then catalog it so that when we have digital records, they're actually searchable and usable as opposed to just random records just put in some sort of miscellaneous database. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, our quote, databasing efforts were really catch as catch can. It was whatever information we saved whenever we scanned. It was basically down to a file name and then maybe a film from which it was, and then the element type. And there was very little extra effort put into it because we didn't have the staff or the team to do that. Mm-hmm. It was a much smaller team back then. And so now there's a very rigorous effort, very diligent effort to try to elevate the standards of all of our cataloging, and with our digital archivist, and also with our what is Sharon's title?
Digital assets.
Digital asset specialist. That to make sure that all the appropriate taxonomy is used and consistently too, because when you have multiple people cataloging, that's where you can run into the variations in record. So it's very important to say if we're using certain terms, these are the terms that we use. And, we run into challenges too, because there are certain terms that are very Disney specific. Mm-hmm. Sharon has a presentation that she gives where she talks about, we don't use the word swine to describe pigs because, it's the three little pigs.
This is just a really quick interjection because it involves my first day on the job here and it involves the word swine. So this is catalogs and catalogs ago. And when I started, it was 2002 and we weren't using the card catalog anymore, but we did have one of the earlier computer catalogs. And somebody wanted a book on pigs for their child, and I went to look it up, and I really do think this was my first day, and I couldn't find anything, and I was so embarrassed because how could you, fine, it's my first day, but how could you not find anything about pigs? And I found out the word you had to look up on this specific catalog was swine. You couldn't search pigs. Obviously that's changed now, but I find that very funny.
Yeah. We've had many very interesting conversations about. One of my favorite was, well, do we call it pixie dust or do we call it fairy dust?
Oh.
And we realized that pixie dust is a very specific term for Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
And any other time it's fairy dust, but if it's Tinkerbell, then it has to be pixie dust. And we've had so many of those very, very, very specific term conversations as we were cleaning up our keyword content that. Afterwards, you're like, I cannot believe this is my job. Is it, can we call it a gown or does it have to be, a dress? So it makes the job very fun.
It sounds pretty great.
Yeah.
Are you accepting any new items into the archives, and what's the specific criteria?
Sure. Every time a film wraps, we will gather all the material from the film. So we are constantly accepting new material. As they finish up, we take it all, we sort it, and we archive it. But that is our main acquisition: is every new film, every new short, all that material is handed over to us at the end of the film.
Wow!
Even when they're computer generated projects, two things: there are always somebody that's doing a doodle somewhere. Mm-hmm. So there's still tradition. That it becomes the challenge of. Okay, now what about the digital assets? And a lot of what the Tori and the collections team do is sort of reach out ahead of time and meet with the supervisors of the various departments and say, please put into your minds and your heads, when you wrap, think about when you're sending material to us. And this is kind of how we like it. You don't have to keep it this way because we know you're busy just trying to get the film done, but just keep this in your mind. And in certain cases, some of their outreach has actually been surprising for the artists themselves because, say, for a story artist, they usually draw story sketches and they'll pin them up on boards. Well, now it's all digital. But in many ways, they'll make little tiny thumbnail drawings, trying to plan out what they're going to put on their sketches. And reaching out to one of the main story guys who's now a director, he said, "Oh, I didn't know you wanted my thumbnails. Oh, I didn't know. I don't want people to see that." Or one of the animators who was trying to plan out his scenes would draw thumbnails, and he had said, "Oh, I didn't know you wanted this." And the collections team would say, "Yes, because what we're trying to preserve is all of your decision making. We're trying to be able to recreate your creative process." Mm-hmm. And so many pieces of that puzzle of your creative process that we can hold on to, the more that the generations in the future will be able to understand what you did and why you chose to do what you did.
So we take everything. We take the things that never made it into the film. We take the first drafts. We take their doodles. We take the stuff they build coffee on, even though we have to be careful with that.
That's cool. I could attest to loving those things because there is coffee on everything worthwhile in my office. If it's worthwhile, I spilled coffee on it.
No, I'm thinking
I mean, it's remarkable because you get such a great picture of the artists, and sometimes it's in the non-official moments that you get the most interesting clues as to what was happening when the film was being made.
Yeah.
And then truth be told, we don't have everything that's ever been made because even over the years, Walt might have gifted some artwork to people, or they might have had certain programs where certain artwork was sent out, or various exhibitions that went out that were gifted to museums. So we don't have everything. However, whenever we see animation art auctions, which are frequently throughout the year, Tori and I will peruse the catalogs and say, are there any gaps in our collection? Or is there anything that's really interesting of note in this auction? Something for which we don't have a lot of, or something that'd be very key. And we'll try to participate in those auctions in our own way. We don't necessarily able to secure those pieces because there are many Disney fans out there who are also engaged in these auctions. So,
I can imagine.
But we do what we can.
But talking about with like all the pieces of like, especially with the films and animation, all that came through my head. I was like, oh my God, Disney's Art of Animation Hotel. That's the last time I went to Disney. I stayed there, and it was really cool to see, like, as a fan, because I am not artistically inclined whatsoever, but just seeing all the stuff of like rough drafts of something and how they show you, it's just really cool.
So you went to the Disney's Art of Animation Resort?
I did.
And you saw those drawings on that very long.
Yeah,
long
I was going to be like, was that you guys?
Yes, our manager of design helped lay that out, and we helped procure some of the images for it for the Disney portions of it.
It's a beautiful resort. We just recently stayed at the one next door, the Pop Century, but we went over we visited the Art of Animation, and it was just so cool.
Yeah.
Do you guys do you guys have a favorite item in the archives
and library?
Yeah, that's impossible to say. Every day we encounter just the most incredibly beautiful artwork. I'm always just amazed at the level of artistry to things that basically won't be seen after the film is wrapped. So I don't have a favorite piece of art. I would say my favorite film is Fantasia.
I was thinking Fantasia when you were talking about the beautiful artwork. In my mind. Fantasia was what came down.
And the artwork is so incredible for that film. And it's really 7 different films, right? Because they're each so different. the artwork is incredible. To be able to see it and to work with it every day is just amazing. And every once in a while, I'll just go back in the vault and look at something just because it's so beautiful. It makes me happy. So that, I think, is probably my favorite film, but I don't think I could ever say one piece of art that I love more than anything else.
Yeah, it all depends upon your mood on any given day. And then sometimes you'll see art that you wouldn't even think of looking at, but based upon a request, you're going into either a title or boxes within a title that you hadn't gone through before, and surprise, there's always something. I don't have any favorites. I would just say vaults 1 through 11, that sort of thing.
All of them.
But for us, I mean, people have asked us in the past, how much do you think that piece of art is worth through something like that? And I've always answered, what is the value of an artist looking at any given random piece of art in our collection and suddenly having an aha moment and realizing what they wanted to do if they had a block, if they didn't know what they were going to do and they see this piece of art and then they realize the clouds part, the angels sing and they know what they're going to do from there on in. That becomes priceless. It's beyond value. You can say the beautiful art and the pretty art is great, or sometimes just simple sketches are valuable. Everything is valuable and amazing.
Can you reveal some of your most famous pieces in the archives?
Most famous pieces?
Well, I don't know about famous pieces, but when you have art, say from Steamboat Willie, where Mickey's behind the wheel, animation.
That's priceless.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
The Sorcerer's Apprentice, or you'll have some of the witch from the hag from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Or, you may have a painting of St. Paul's Cathedral in London, which is the entrance of Mary Poppins in Mary Poppins. Or you may look at a piece of Salvador Dali art from Destino. So it all depends upon who feels whom or what is famous.
That's a good point.
Yes. What's the oldest piece of art you have in the archives?
We do have just a teeny bit of artwork from the Alice comedies, which predate Oswald.
Wow.
Yeah, they're very, very rare. And we really feel like they were maybe just stuck in between some Oswald stuff by accident, so they got saved. That's the oldest that we have, but there are very, very few of those remain.
Unfortunately, when you realize how many stacks of drawings there would be. But to have a drawing from an Alice comedy wrapped around a character level of animation from skeleton dance, it was just used as a divider. Okay.
It was scrap paper.
It's like surprise.
Yeah. But those would be the oldest pieces we have.
Yes.
Wow.
Do you have a favorite Disney trivia fact?
Better trivia than I am.
No, I really don't have a favorite Disney trivia fact. I just think that one of my favorite facts is the fact that we have estimated 65 million pieces of physical art in our collection.
That's amazing.
And we're going through it little by little. Year by year, we have our prioritized list of titles, and we review that. Tori reviews that, and selects the next title up to be rehoused. That's a process. But as for trivia, I don't have a specific fact.
The Jungle Book. Actually, I have a small trivia. The actual book that was used for the Jungle Book for the title page was reused for Robin Hood. So it's exactly the same book. They just changed the inside. So we have a book from the Jungle Book that the cover says the Jungle Book, but when you open it up, it's the interior pages from the opening of Robin Hood. So they reused the same book for both.
And if you look at the title on that book, if you freeze frame your Blu-ray or whatever, and look underneath the title, The Jungle Book, you'll see some kind of goofed painting right below that title, because originally somebody had painted in by Rudyard Kipling under it. But I guess they figured they didn't want to get into any hassles that way, and so they just wanted to call it The Jungle Book, because it was Walt Disney's film, it was the Walt Disney Company's film, so Walt Disney's The Jungle Book.
And then the same book was also used at the end of the live action. At the end of the live action Jungle Book, at the very end, the the book opens up and all the CG animals come out, but they did actually shoot the original book as the model for that CG part. So it actually had yet another life at the end of the live action.
I was like, I need to rewatch these.
The director, John Favreau, was insistent that he would use the actual book that opened up the animated film to close the computer animated film.
Oh, that's
so it was
cool.
very, very insistent. So Tori and I were both on a small sound stage, not too far from here, with a whole crew of almost about 40 or more people and multiple monitors and 3D gear and everything else.
Telling them they couldn't touch the book.
Yeah.
Well, you guys,
opening and closing it for them.
Yeah.
would you guys go, either you or someone on your teams go if they're shooting like out of the country, out of the state type thing to consult or anything? Or do they just like send an email, call you?
It's a very, very rare occasion that they actually would use something from our archives. And this is the only occasion. And yes, we did.
Right.
We did accompany the book and we stayed with it the whole time just to make sure everything stayed safe.
Even when, say, a team in Imagineering, which isn't too far from us, across the street, if they want to scan a maquette, which is a study model, a study sculpture of one of our characters, if they want to do a 3D scan of it, a member of the collections team will, borrow one of the company Yukon trucks and then travel across the street and then escort it into the room in which the 3D scanning is taking place. Is the one that's actually physically handling the object onto the 3D scanning platform and is there while it's scanned, and then, reverses the whole process in bringing it back. So we take it that seriously, that we actually care for the art so much that's the level that we attend to the details on.
For any of the theme park construction, would they consult you for the archives or use the archives at all for that?
Sure. Yeah, we work with them a lot. We share knowledge. They also have their own archive, so we share a lot of knowledge. And if they're building a particular ride, and I know there are some, I know there's a lot to say, but they're building some other new rides in different parks, and they do come and consult with us and look at the original material as part of their design.
We have a team over at the main animation studios because we report operationally into the animation studios. And there's a team called the Creative Legacy Team. And they oversee all of the projects, say, that come through the parks, whether it's hotels or Disney Cruise Lines or other resort facilities. And so they'll review and make sure everything is being used appropriately or designed or developed appropriately. So we'll partner with the Creative Legacy Team and the requesters from Imagineering on their projects, just to make sure that everything has just that right Disney approach, because we want to make sure that if our intellectual property is used from the animation studios, whether it's the environment or the characters, that they're done just right. And it starts with the artwork that's in our collection and then, the people within the animation studios in our department.
That just brings up a quick question. As Disney acquires properties, do you get, I guess, anything from those properties? Like, for instance, Star Wars now
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
I stole your...
They all have their own archives. So each one of those big divisions have their own archives. So Lucas has their own archives. Marvel has their own archives. So we don't get any of those collections, but certainly we work with them and we all interact together. But each one of those has their own separate archives.
Yeah, and when the Walt Disney Company bought Pixar had its own archives. So that anything that has to do with Pixar titles, you go to them. So it just made sense.
We love Toy Story here.
It's a good movie. I watched the third one recently with my nephew.
That's actually my son's. I have 4-year-old sons, and it's actually, believe it or not, the third one is their favorite, and they have dressed up as Woody and Buzz, their twins, several times.
How cute.
And my
You're just making me think of the
Our friends in the Pixar library would love to hear that.
Well, I have to laugh because my mom bought probably like the toys for my nephew, and they say Andy on the bottom on the shoes. And for like when my mom first saw them, she thought like they were another child because it's not my nephew's name. And I was like, Mom, did you not watch the movies with me growing up? Like, it's Andy's. They're Andy's toys.
We took my boys to Toy Story World, and it was perfect. I mean, you were talking about the care and the quality. Every detail was just so well done. So that would be like the Pixar archive would be what they would consult there.
Exactly. But what's interesting is that, to Tori's point, there are so many archives and libraries and resource centers within the Walt Disney Company that, we've, for the past few years, we've been trying to create an internal network of all the libraries.
Oh, wow. That's great.
In the past week or two, we had a gathering of most of the librarians, either in person here at the library or through various, television links, so that we can all try to get to know each other, and so we can all connect with each other, and we can all reach out and support each other, ask each other questions, or, if we need to direct people who are making requests of us, we'll know to whom to direct them. So it becomes all an internal web of support from all of these libraries that are primarily internal corporate resource centers.
If somebody was interested in becoming a librarian or archivist for the Disney Company, what would you recommend to them?
There's a lot of different paths that you could go. Certainly, knowing your Disney information is very important, but I think also it's very important to just learn your skills. Just if you want to be a librarian, learn how to be a really good librarian. If you're a museum collections manager, learn that. Keep an eye. Disney does have a careers website. Disney also has internship programs. Those are all possible ways to do it. But just like any other kind of large museum job, part of it is keeping an eye on what might be available, and also just building your skill sets. If you're interested in film history,
learn film history.
Learn film history.
Yeah.
If you're interested in animation, make sure you know a lot about animation, and all of that will help you get there.
Yeah, it's just all about acquiring those skill sets and familiarity and all those transferable job skills.
Absolutely. Megan, did you have another question? I saw...
Do you have any fond memories working with Disney legend Dave Smith?
Okay, well, I didn't get a chance to work with him a lot. He was always around. He was in the main Walt Disney Archives, so they were a different team, a different group. But he was always very affable and very friendly in terms of working with myself and everybody. My particular memory has very little to do with Disney, though, because he was also very fond of local theater and local arts in the schools in the Burbank area. And so I happened to be in a play, a stage play of Arsenic and Old Lace that was being staged at a church in Burbank. And I was playing Uncle Teddy, the crazy uncle who thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. Upstairs. Well, in the audience one night was Dave Smith. And because he likes to go to all of these local theater groups and choir groups, and especially with the schools. And I just remember afterwards he said, you were a really great Teddy.
Oh.
And he remembered that, next time I ran into him, I said, I really liked your Teddy. So, he was very personable, very affable. Yes, he knew a lot, but I think the personality was what was so important. And to think that, getting it all started, it won't be long before that archives will be 50 years old.
Wow.
I think it's a testament to even the company itself to say, we need to do something. We need to save this. We need to figure out how to preserve this artwork the way it should be, or, even the company history the way it should be. So, and all the people within the main Walt Disney Archives are also great. Being Becky and Kevin and everybody there. It's great to work with them. Whenever we have a question, we just pick up the phone or send out an email. they have an answer for us, and vice versa. If they have a question of us, we do the same. So it's all part of that collaboration.
It sounds like everybody is just a really good librarian.
Sorry?
I said it sounds like those are the signs of really good librarians or archivists. Curators. I'll just I think here and when you're working with the public, also you're here to help. You're here to support. You're here to bring joy or to give research. It's
one of the things I've always loved about being part of the museum community and the library community is that willingness to work together and ultimately just wanting to share what you have, right? You have these incredible collections and you just want everyone to enjoy them and to love them as much as you do and to be able to network out to as many people as you possibly can so that you get to share that. And I think that's one of the joys of doing what we do, is to be able to share that and to get to know so many other people in this community.
Well, and for ourselves, for the research side, along with that, nothing beats having an artist or somebody come over and look at some artwork and just suddenly almost cry from looking at a piece of artwork, because sometimes they don't realize that this artwork has been saved, or sometimes they don't realize how much artistry goes into making these because they're so familiar with just the films. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it's an artist themselves that is always looked up to an artist from a previous generation, just being able to connect with the art from that artist and to watch their faces just go, oh, wow. And you'll see teams when we're showing some artwork, some physical artwork, and suddenly they're getting ideas. And suddenly you see the gears turning and you can feel the level of creativity just rise. That's an amazing feeling to be a part of that. And even sometimes we'll have old veteran artists who are long retired and we'll visit and we'll show them some artwork. Years ago, there's a gentleman, his name is Walt Paraguay. He's rather salty-tongued and stuff. And, he didn't think anybody would have saved his art, and he was always kind of downplaying everything. Well, we had toured him through not the old animation building, the animation building over in Burbank with the nice, beautiful Mickey Mouse hat in front. And we had some large-scale reproductions of his art that the design team had printed up and hung on the walls in the animation building. And he walked by me, looked and went, wait, I made those. And he literally started crying. Here's this salty-tongued guy.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
That you not only save this artwork, but now you're putting it on the walls of the building. And so, from artists like that to research teams researching projects to just anybody that comes into the building, it is a joy when we're able to kind of connect them with the art. And sometimes it can even be a slightly perverse joy when they reach that point of art overload and you see the eyes glaze over and they look like somebody who's just had a full meal and they just kind of push back from the table and they kind of say, I'm done. The point, I can't take any more art into my brain right now. And you kind of smile to yourself and go, okay, yeah, we did it right.
Yeah. But those are the things you can't put like monetary value on, like you were talking before.
It's priceless.
No. I mean, there have been times over the years where different mindsets and methodologies. I'm thinking about 20 years ago or so, where it's like, well, what is the value of the ARL? Prove your value. Well, the value is all the intangibles. The value is, to Tori's point, somebody walking down the street with a character on their shirt, whether it's a princess or a beloved Disney character, or whether there are some shoes out there with the images on it, or whether there's, a certain moment in a film that echoes a moment from an animated feature. When there's a moment of someone having to have the live action book at the end of their film to close their film. All these are intangibles. So what would have happened if none of this had been saved? Where would they go? What would they do? Everything would be made from scratch. And would it be up to the standards? Well, most likely, but would it be plussed? So
it's one of the things that really struck me when I started working here is Disney's place is part of American cultural history and really is part of all of our childhood, and how big a responsibility that is to know that you're carrying that forward. Because, I don't think there's anyone in the world who at least hasn't seen or heard some Disney movie and has some sort of memory, right? And one of the nice things about where I work is that people like to share those memories, and they'll, this movie just really moved me, or when I was a little kid, I really wanted to, be this person. And it can be said that that's a really important part of our history of America, our history as a culture, of film history, as well as art history. And so it's really amazing to be part of that and to see. So when we do have people come in here, especially the artists, we keep a box of tissue nearby because, they can't cry on the art.
Yeah, I was about to say you don't want them getting tears on the art.
Well, I think, people can be so jaded as to say, oh, when you say it's magical, oh, that you're just using a word. That's just, oh, Disney. Oh, yeah, you have a magical day and all that kind of stuff. But it really is magical when you realize all of these artists over these generations, men, women, young and old, have worked together to make all of these stories, to tell all these stories. From Walt being involved and pitching that idea of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and enthralling the crew to make the film that would be such a landmark film.
And that,
to
if you
even the films of
sorry.
today.
Yeah. I was going to say, sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, it really is magical to say, it's amazing that this whole part of the culture is preserved in here, that everybody can draw from that, and that it will help build upon that legacy. So every film from here, for generations, can have this from which to build.
And forgive me if I'm wrong. There was when Snow White was made, the feature-length animated film. From the lore that I've heard, people thought that Walt Disney was what do you mean, like a feature-length animated film?
No, they thought it was Walt's folly. They thought that he was sinking a bunch of money into something that would never succeed. Who would watch this brightly colored cartoon for an hour and 10 minutes? Not everybody thought it was a folly. I mean, they had somebody come through as they were needing the money to finish the film, and they showed the banker, I think from Bank of America, what they had, and he didn't say a word. He was walking out, and both Walt and Roy are wondering, okay, what did he think? What did he think? Well, what do you think? He said, I think you got a hit on your hands. You got your money. So it was. A lot of people, I'm sure, in show business thought that it would fail, but there are some people that really supported the film, and Walt being the biggest cheerleader of all, and Roy, because Roy oftentimes doesn't get his due to try to keep everything going. But then all of the artists themselves, between our story sketches and concept art and animation drawings and layout drawings and background paintings and all the work of everybody to make these films. And to be able to preserve the art from those films is just amazing. And to be able to help that legacy carry on is it's hard to describe.
Well, we want to thank you so much for talking with us on Syosset Library's podcast.
Turn the
page. Does anybody have anything before we wrap up?
My last question. So you were talking about having pieces or trying to get pieces, because I'm just thinking, because I like going to conventions, they'll have different collectors things, and a lot of stuff is, it's like they have Disney, they have Warner Brothers sketches and stuff. I say that because I own 2 pieces from Disney. One's a Marvel one that I ended up getting because I was like, I need Stan Lee's autograph, and that happened, but that's not part of the story. But Because like you see, like it's like, 1 out of 100 made or stuff. Do you usually have one of those, and do you accept more if people decide to like donate them to you?
Well, we'll always take donations, but
usually if they're limited editions, like 1 out of 100, that's a different aspect altogether. Right. But if it's production art from the films, we take a good, long, hard look at what is out there on any given auction, and we try to decide, well, is this something, A, do we have the resources to even get it? Because some of it's very expensive and pricey. Or B,
is it authentic?
Is it authentic?
That's true, too.
Do we trust it? Yeah. And then, does it fill a gap or does it fill a need we have within the department? And then we'll confer with, our director, Mary, and then we'll see what we can do. As I said, we're usually competing with a lot of very enthusiastic Disney fans who may just have a very manic drive on one given title.
Yeah.
And we have interests. And so we can't spend everything on just one type of piece of artwork. So we don't necessarily succeed in procuring that artwork, but sometimes we do, and we're glad to repatriate the artwork into the collection. And we're glad that somebody has succeeded in getting a piece of art that they really find themselves to be of value. But we're always keeping our eyes open.
Thank you so much for being here. Once again, this is Jessica with
Stacy,
Megan,
and
Tori and Fox
of the Disney Disney
Animation Research Library. Though we're not a public library, we hope through our work we're able to touch the public through all of the works of people that reference the artwork in our collection.
And I think you really do.
You do it like 110%.
Thank you for all your work.
And we are going to we're going to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Thank you.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.